The monster in the void. The enemy fleet hovered like a steel noose in the dark. 300 warships, sharp-edged and glinting, encircled the dying world of Vlok. Their formation was flawless, clinical, suffocating, unbreakable. For centuries, the Vishari Dominion had crushed star systems with formations just like this. Entire species had fallen under their heel. Empires burned resistance, shattered, but today something was different. Today they hesitated. Out beyond the asteroid belt in the cold vacuum of the system's edge, a shadow emerged. Not a formation, not a fleet, just one ship, the UNS Nemesis. A monster. It glided through this void without fanfare, its blackened hull absorbing the starlight like a curse. It was twice the size of the Vishari's largest dreadnought, its surface scarred by battles long past but bristling with weapons whose purpose was terrifyingly clear. On the Vishari command bridge, officers whispered the name like a death sentence. Nemesis. No species had ever seen it up close and lived to tell the tale. Until today, inside the command center of the human ship, Admiral Varian stood with hands clasped behind his back. His uniform was immaculate. His expression was unreadable. Behind him, the hum of systems and quiet chatter of crew filled the air, all efficient, all calm. The view screen lit up. 300 warships stared back. Varian didn't flinch. "They're hailing us," said Commander Sarah Holt, her voice steady despite the enormity of what they faced. Varian's jaw moved just slightly. "Let them speak." The screen flickered and the face of a reptilian alien appeared, golden-scaled, fanged, adorned in ceremonial war armor. High Warlord Kesh of the Vishari Dominion. His gaze was dripping with contempt. "Humans," he hissed, "you defy the Dominion. You stand alone, surrender your vessel, and I may grant your species a merciful death." Varian tilted his head, almost amused. "You don't understand," he said softly. "We're not here to negotiate." Kesh's slitted pupils narrowed. "Then you have sealed your fate." Varian raised a brow. "No, Warlord, you have." He gave a single nod, and the void caught fire. The main cannon of the Nemesis lit up with a white-hot pulse, an experimental weapon, harnessing the energy of a dying star. The beam erupted from the ship's core and sliced forward with impossible precision. The Vishari dreadnought at the front of their formation didn't explode. It disintegrated, gone atomized, erased. Chaos erupted in the alien fleet. Some ships tried to scatter. Others returned fire, but they were already too late. The Nemesis moved like death incarnate. Railguns fired at near-light speed, punching through Vishari shields like tissue. Drone swarms poured from its hangars, sleek, fast, deadly, darting through the battlefield and carving enemy fighters apart in synchronized formations. The Vishari were seasoned conquerors. Today they were prey. On the Dominion flagship, Kesh reeled back from the screen, eyes wide in disbelief. "Impossible. One ship cannot. One human warship is all it takes," Varian said coldly, cutting him off. His voice carried the weight of 1,000 buried colonies, 1,000 massacres, 1,000 children who had vanished into Vishari hands. The Nemesis tore through the Dominion blockade with surgical brutality. No warnings, no demands, no survivors. This was not diplomacy. This was vengeance. And vengeance had a name. Fire in the darkness. The stars themselves seemed to recoil as the Nemesis advanced. One shot had vaporized a dreadnought. One salvo had thrown the mighty Vishari fleet into disarray. But Admiral Varian wasn't finished, not even close. Full spread, he ordered, his voice low, steady, lethal. The ship responded like a living beast. Missile bays opened, railgun turrets rotated, and drone squadrons spun into new attack patterns. In silence, the void exploded. Kinetic projectiles tore through the heart of the Vishari formation. Missiles coated in stealth polymers and tipped with antimatter slipped past their point defense systems and turned cruisers into vapor trails. Plasma lances licked the flanks of fleeing frigates. And the drones? The drones danced between capital ships, slipping into weak points like surgical knives and gutting them from within. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. On the bridge of the Nemesis, the lights glowed crimson. Warnings blinked, systems roared, but not from damage, from output. The ship was running hot, its full arsenal unleashed at once, venting fury born from centuries of humiliation, fear, and silence. The crew didn't speak. They didn't need to. Each of them had seen the slave camps, the mass graves, the twisted experiments conducted on their civilians by Dominion scientists. They had memorized the faces of children who had never returned. Now they watched Vishari warships burn. Target Alpha 22 destroyed, a lieutenant reported. Gamma Wing reports, all drones operational. 3 enemy vessels in full retreat. Should we pursue? No. Varian said, not yet. Let them run. Let them tell the others what they saw. Commander Holt glanced sideways, blood drying on a cut along her cheek. She hadn't flinched when the bridge shook, hadn't spoken a word of doubt since the fight began. But now she asked, "Sir, are we giving them a chance to regroup?" Varian's eyes stayed on the view screen, watching another cruiser spiral into debris. "We're giving them a chance to be afraid," he said, "real fear. The kind that lingers in your bones, the kind that survives surrender." The VIII fleet tried to respond. They fired back with plasma salvos, missile barrages, energy nets, but nothing worked. The Nemesis absorbed the hits. Rerouted shields countered with devastating return fire. Every exchange was one-sided. Every maneuver met with cold, brutal precision. And then the signal came. "Escape pods launching," Holt said. Varian didn't even blink. "Ignore them." Holt hesitated. "Sir, the pods." I said, "Ignore them." There was no mercy aboard the Nemesis, not anymore. The VIII had shown none. Their prisoners hadn't died in combat. They'd been dissected, sold harvested. Civilians were cannon fodder. Children were trophies. Now the reckoning had come. The last of the VIII warships broke formation. Their command ships tried to flee behind debris clouds, jamming sensors. A few activated emergency warp drives mid-combat, risking catastrophic failure. It didn't matter. The Nemesis saw everything. Drones marked stragglers, fire pursuit torpedoes. No survivors. A pause. Confirm no survivors. The command echoed across the fleet's communication systems like a funeral bell for an entire species. Varian watched the aftermath unfold like a conductor leading a requiem. Debris floated where proud warships had once stood. Fires burned in the void, trailing from ruptured reactors. And silence, true. Terrifying silence settled across the comm channels of the VIII fleet. Kesh was gone. Killed, fled, or erased from the record. No matter. The Dominion had lost its voice. Holt turned to Varian. "What now?" He didn't answer immediately. The stars flickered on the view screen, their light distorted by the heat and radiation still venting from hundreds of wrecks. Then calmly set course for Trian 7. Holt's breath caught. "That's a core supply hub." "I know. There are millions there. Civilians, workers, families." Varian turned to face her. His expression was carved from granite. "So were ours." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, justified, righteous. The bridge of the Nemesis returned to a steady hum. Systems cooled. Damage reports showed only superficial scratches. The monster was still intact, still hungry. Behind them, 300 ships of the VIII fleet no longer existed. Before them, an entire dominion awaited judgment. Burn them all. Trian 7 glowed like a steel jewel in the dark, a world of fire and industry. Its furnaces never stopped burning. Warships rolled out of orbital factories by the hour. Millions of workers, soldiers, and slaves kept the Dominion's war machine alive and grinding forward. Today, it was nothing more than a target. From the command bridge of the Nemesis, Admiral Varian stared at the tactical display. Red circles pulsed thousands of ships in orbit. Freighters, escorts, cruisers, refueling platforms, massive dry docks. Each was positioned perfectly like a ritual waiting for judgment. "Status of the Hellstorm missiles?" Varian asked, eyes unblinking. "Fully armed and ready," Commander Holt replied. "We can wipe out their atmosphere in one strike." Varian nodded once fire. No speech, no warning, no pretense of mercy. The belly of the Nemesis opened like the jaws of a beast. Dozens of silos roared to life. Then came the launch, hundreds of missiles streaking toward the planet like flaming spears hurled by gods. Trian 7's defenses flared energy. Shields, flak bursts, electromagnetic nets. They bought seconds. No more. The missiles weren't targeting cities. They detonated in the upper atmosphere. The sky of Trian 7 shifted from steel gray to blood red, then to black. And then the fire fell. Firestorms. Rolling waves of heat, tornadoes of flame, megastructures collapsed like matchsticks. Refineries exploded in chain reactions. Orbital shipyards shattered raining molten wreckage onto the cities below. Smoke blanketed the world so thick the sun vanished behind it. Enemy fleet responding. Holt reported dozens of ships moving to intercept, deploy the drones, return fire. The Dominion's defenders screamed toward the Nemesis, their captains throwing themselves into the flames. They were torn apart. Drone fighters surged from the Terran warship in perfect synchrony, slicing through enemy formations like razors. Plasma fire cut down the Dominion ships one after another. Railguns thundered, launching tungsten slugs at hypersonic speeds, shattering hulls, rupturing reactors, turning resistance into debris. Varian stood still. This was righteous. Target Alpha 22 destroyed. Gamma Wing reports full operational capacity, 3 ships in full retreat. Pursuit? No, Varian said. Let them run. Let them tell the others. Holt turned. You're giving them a chance to regroup. Varian's eyes didn't leave the screen. He watched another Dominion cruiser spiral apart in a silent explosion. "I'm giving them something to fear," he said coldly. "The kind that survives surrender." Dominion vessels scrambled. Some tried to flee, some engaged blindly, some activated warp drives, mid-combat risking collapse. The Nemesis hunted all of them. Drones marked fleeing vessels. Pursuit torpedoes. He paused. No survivors. The words echoed like a final verdict. Varian had seen what mercy had cost them. Slave camps, harvested children, prisoners dissected for sport. The VIII had no humanity, and so they would be shown none. The last of the Dominion defense crumbled. Command ships shattered. Comms fell to static. What once was a planetary bastion now flickered like a dying fire. Distress calls incoming, reported Lieutenant Morrow. They were pleading for surrender. Mercy. Varian's voice was quiet, but every word cut like a blade. They never showed us mercy. He stared down at the world. Trian 7 was no longer alive. It was a graveyard. Holt said nothing, her knuckles white against the console. The flickering flames below reflected in her eyes. She had seen horrors during the early days of the war, but this was final. "Casualty estimates," Varian asked. "Unknown," Holt said softly. "Millions, maybe more." He nodded, not out of apathy, but memory. He remembered the Terran colonies that had cried for help and died alone. The signals that had gone silent mid-sentence. The mothers who screamed for their children as VIII soldiers dragged them away. There was no number large enough to account for that pain. This wasn't genocide. This was accounting. "Target eliminated," Morrow confirmed. Varian breathed slowly. "Set course." Holt's voice was cautious. "Next target." Varian's stare was cold direct. "Just Prime." Holt blinked. "That's their cultural capital." "I know. There are billions down there. Families, schools, civilians. So are ours," Varian replied. She said nothing more. The command passed. Engines roared. The Nemesis turned. Behind them, Trian 7 burned like a cursed sun. Ahead lay an empire still clinging to the illusion of power. No more diplomacy. The Nemesis emerged from FTL like a phantom. Before it lay VIII Prime, the Dominion's cultural heart, political core, and ancestral homeworld. Its cities were carved from obsidian and gold, spiraling toward the clouds like monuments to a civilization that had ruled the stars for centuries. Planet-wide broadcasts pulsed through the void, displaying proud histories and imperial songs, oblivious to the doom racing toward them. Not for long. On the Nemesis bridge, the mood was cold, focused, mechanical. "Orbital defenses detected," Commander Holt reported. "Minimal. They didn't expect us to come here." "They should have," Varian said. He stepped closer to the viewport. The planet filled it, massive, regal, confident. How many Terran colonies had felt like this? Peaceful, secure, unaware of the fire descending on them. Sir Morrow said, glancing up from her console. "We're being hailed." Varian raised an eyebrow. "Dominion." Morrow nodded. "High Chancellor Rakis himself." Varian exhaled. "Put him through." The screen shimmered and a new face appeared. Unlike the snarling warlord, Kesh Rakis was calm, composed, seated upon a gilded throne, his emerald scales glinting beneath soft lighting. His yellow eyes studied Varian with unnerving clarity. "Admiral Elias Varian," Rakis said smoothly, "you stand at the gates of my world. Tell me, what will you do?" Varian didn't blink. "Exactly what I did to the last three." Rakis didn't flinch. "We misjudged you," he said. "We saw humanity as weak, fractured. Now I see something else, a force even the Dominion cannot contain." Varian tilted his head. "Is this where you beg?" Rakis's lip curled. "No, but I will offer what no human leader has ever received from us." Varian's brow furrowed slightly. "Go on." "Surrender," Rakis said. The word hit the bridge like a thunderclap. Holt turned sharply. Crew members exchanged stunned glances. Even the hum of machinery seemed to pause. "You will withdraw your forces," Rakis continued. "In return, the Dominion will recognize humanity as an equal galactic power. All hostilities will cease. All prisoners released, a non-aggression pact. 10 generations of peace." Varian stared. Everything they'd fought for. Right there, peace, recognition, victory. But it felt wrong, because the names of the dead still echoed in his mind. "And what about justice?" Varian asked, his voice low. Rakis hesitated. "Justice. For the colonies you burned, the children you stole, the billions you enslaved." Varian leaned forward. "Do you expect us to shake your hand and forget?" "We cannot undo the past," Rakis replied carefully. "But we can shape the future. If you destroy us now, you don't end a war. You create a vacuum. Something worse will rise. Empires do not vanish peacefully." Varian's eyes narrowed. "You want to talk about peace now? Now when your cities are next? I'm warning you. Ryukyus said, if you do this, you become something worse than conquerors. There was a pause, and then Varian's face shifted, not with anger. With certainty, we crossed the line between justice and vengeance. A long time ago, he said quietly. Sir, Holt said barely above a whisper. Prepare the Hellstorm missiles, Varian commanded, turning away from the screen. Ryukyus's voice crackled with urgency. Admiral, don't do this. Varian didn't turn back. Goodbye, Chancellor. The transmission cut to black. Holt stared at him. There are billions down there, Varian. His jaw clenched. They cheered as we were burned alive. Missiles launched. Again, the sky screamed. The Nemesis payload pierced JS Prime's atmosphere. Planetary shields ignited, but they weren't enough. The fire rolled in waves, towers of culture crumbled. Museums, monuments, temples of dominance reduced to ash in moments. Screams flooded Dominion channels. Then silence. Just Prime died like the rest. No speeches, no treaties, no survivors. On the bridge, no one spoke. No celebration, no cheers. Only the hum of the engines and the quiet realization that there was no turning back. Mora whispered, "We've just destroyed their heart." Varian didn't look away from the flames. "Then let's take their soul." Holt stared at him. "Sir, you're not serious." "Set course," he said. "Next target." She didn't have to ask. There was only one left. Corron Prime, the Dominion homeworld. The silence before the fire. The Nemesis drifted through the void like a ghost. Behind it, the Dominion burned its supply lines, severed its cultural icons, shattered its leaders, silenced. The death of JS Prime had shaken the galaxy. Across thousands of worlds, holoscreens replayed the footage in horrified loops, an entire capital reduced to ashes in minutes. But aboard the Nemesis, there was no satisfaction, no speeches, no laughter, only silence. The bridge lights glowed low. Crew moved with robotic precision. Faces were drawn. Hollow, even Commander Holt, once unflinching, seemed dulled by the enormity of what they had done. "Status report," Varian said quietly. "System nominal core stable weapons, reloaded shields at 97%. Holt replied. "Destination. Locked Corron Prime final approach in 4 hours." The words hung in the air like a noose. Corron Prime, the Dominion homeworld. The source, the throne. It had ruled for centuries, crushing rebellions, rewriting galactic law, declaring entire species obsolete. Its fleets had glassed dozens of human colonies during the early wars. It was time. Still something gnawed at the crew. Not hesitation, not fear. Something deeper. They had won, but at what cost? "Sir," said Lieutenant Morrow from communications. "We're receiving incoming transmissions." Varian turned slightly. "Dominion." "No, sir. The Tani Confederacy neutral observers. They're requesting an emergency communication." Varian arched a brow. The Tani had remained silent through the war, cowards cloaked in diplomacy. "Put them through." The screen flickered. A tall avian humanoid appeared adorned in silver robes, feathers shimmering like polished chrome eyes like burning amber, pierced the screen. Admiral Varian, the Tani envoy, began, voice smooth and heavy with diplomacy. "We speak not as enemies nor as allies, but as witnesses." "Witnesses who did nothing," Varian replied, ice in his tone. The envoy nodded solemnly. "And perhaps we were wrong. But the destruction of JIS Prime has forced the galaxy to reconsider its silence. We urge you, please stand down. The Dominion is finished. Anything more is extermination." Varian stared at him for a long moment. "That's the idea." The envoy's feathers rustled. "You will not be seen as liberators. Admiral, you will be remembered as conquerors. If you erase the Dominion, you will invite fear, not respect, and in fear, retaliation breeds." Varian leaned closer. "Were you there when they burned our colonies? When children screamed into static as your council voted on non-interference? Tell me, envoy, where was your diplomacy when they took our homeworlds and left nothing but ash?" Silence. The envoy didn't answer. He didn't need to. "You speak of retaliation," Varian said coldly. "We've lived it." The Tani looked almost mournful. "If you finish this path, someone will rise one day to do to you what you are doing now." Varian's eyes didn't waver. "Then let them try." He ended the transmission with a single motion. The bridge went quiet again. Holt broke the silence. "They're terrified." "They should be." "Sir," she hesitated. "What if the envoy was right? What if we win this war only to become what we hated?" Varian didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned back toward the viewport where the swirling stars parted to reveal the distant curve of Corron Prime. A gleaming, proud world, unaware that it had hours left to exist. "We didn't start this war," he said at last, "but we will end it. Completely." The silence thickened. Suddenly, Morrow's voice cut in sharply. New transmission from Corron Prime itself. Varian's brow rose on screen. The Dominion symbol flickered and then a face appeared, aged, regal, unmistakable. High Consul VIII, supreme leader of the Dominion. He was draped in dark emerald robes, scales dulled with age but eyes still sharp with authority. Admiral Varian, he said, voice echoing like a sermon. I imagine you are pleased with your destruction. Varian was unmoved, not pleasure purpose. Base, you misunderstand what you're about to do, VIII said. You think this will end war, but power cannot erase hate. You will burn this world and you will inherit its legacy. We ruled in fear. You will inherit fear and you will choke on it. Save your rhetoric, Varian snapped. This isn't history class, it's a death sentence. We are prepared to fight to the last, VIII declared. There will be no surrender, no begging, no mercy. If we die standing. For the first time, Varian allowed a faint smirk. Finally, something we agree on. The screen went black. Holt swallowed hard. All ships report readiness, she said. Varian nodded once. Prepare Hellstorm missiles. Load drones. Charge main cannon. He stared into the approaching light of Corron Prime. One more fire, then silence. The end of an empire. The stars around Corron Prime shimmered with unnatural brilliance. It was not sunlight. It was the reflection of 3,000 Dominion warships, the last wall between humanity and total victory. They filled the void in layered formations from towering dreadnoughts to swarming fighters. Massive carriers floated like ancient beasts, their hulls bristling with turrets and launch bays. This was no mere defense, it was a last stand. The VIII had thrown everything into this final line. And still Elias Varian did not hesitate. The Nemesis glided out of warp like the shadow of death, its hull gleaming with battle scars, its engines burning blue with vengeance. Behind it followed a modest Terran fleet, no match in numbers, but forged in fire, tested against extinction. Enemy fleet detected, Commander Holt said, 3,000 ships all converging on us. All that's left of their empire, Varian muttered. Then let's bury it. A beat of silence. Then came the voice from comms. They're hailing us. No surrender, no retreat. They say they'll fight to the last warrior. A faint smile tugged at Varian's lips. For once, he said, they understand us. He turned toward the forward view, watching as the enemy blotted out the stars. Engage, and the void ignited. The Nemesis launched forward, flanked by destroyers and drone carriers. Railguns spat death at relativistic speeds. Laser batteries swept across the dark like blades of molten glass. Drones surged from Terran bays and black clouds. Fast, furious, surgical. Each burst of fire lit the darkness with electric fury. The Dominion responded in kind. Plasma cannons raked across human hulls. Missile swarms chased Terran frigates. Dozens of fighters crashed together in burning spirals, locked in duels that ended in silence. But the Nemesis did not break. It plowed through the front lines like a titan. Shields absorbed impact after impact, flickering but never failing. Its massive spinal cannon glowed, then fired, unleashing a blast of energy that tore through a Dominion battlecruiser like paper. On the bridge, systems screamed damage. Warnings blinked, but Varian remained still. We've taken hits on Deck 7. Holt called out, minor hull breaches. No loss of pressure. Maintain formation, Varian said, no mercy, no retreat. Around them, Dominion ships crumbled. The once proud fleet that had terrorized the stars was now bleeding, ships torn apart, reactors venting flame comms filled with screams and static. Some VIII captains tried to flee, but Varian's voice rang clear. No survivors' torpedoes tracked them. The missiles obeyed. One by one, the runners were erased, chased, caught, and shattered into debris. And then there was nothing left between them and the planet. Corron Prime filled the screen. Beautiful, arrogant, a world of green oceans, black spires, golden cities glittering beneath the clouds. The jewel of the Dominion. Sir Holt said, her voice quieter now. We've broken them. Varian didn't answer immediately. His hands were clenched behind his back, knuckles white, his eyes locked on the world that had ordered the burning of Terran colonies, the enslavement of his people, the death of children in sterile Dominion labs. It had taken years, millions dead, entire planets gone. But now at last they were here. Prepare Hellstorm missiles, he ordered. All batteries lock targets, no staggered fire, full saturation. Holt hesitated. There are billions down there, civilians. Varian's jaw flexed. Did they spare ours? She said nothing. She didn't have to. All batteries armed, Waro confirmed, missiles locked, awaiting command. Varian stepped forward, eyes cold as the void. Glass it, the Nemesis obeyed. Hellstorm missiles roared from launch bays, slicing through space with savage elegance. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They rained upon Corron Prime's atmosphere like the vengeance of gods long denied. Planetary defense grids activated, desperate and frantic but overwhelmed. The missiles struck, the sky turned to fire. Cities vanished in nuclear blossoms. Oceans boiled, turning clouds to acid rain. Forests ignited in chain reactions that ripped continents apart. Towers of obsidian and gold crumbled palaces. Monuments, archives, all gone in an hour. And the screams, those echoes of extinction, flooded the Nemesis comms before being consumed by silence. Corron Prime, heart of the VIII Dominion, was dead. No fleet remained. No voice answered. Only flame. On the bridge, no one moved. Holt's hand shook as she turned off her comm. Morrow's face was pale, eyes wet but unblinking. Varian said nothing. There were no cheers, no shouts, no triumph. Only the hum of the Nemesis drifting over the ashes of an empire. "We've done it," Holt whispered. Varian looked at her, his voice like stone. "No, we survived it." He turned to the stars ahead. "Set course." "Where to, sir?" His answer came without hesitation. "Wherever they think we won't go." And with that, the Nemesis slipped into the void once more, silent, unyielding, unconquered. Behind it, the Dominion was no more. But peace had died long ago. The rift, the war was over, and yet the Nemesis sailed on. Corron Prime lay behind them, a smoldering ruin, a tomb for a fallen empire. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. Some species celebrated. Others cowered. Most remained silent, staring at their star maps and wondering when humanity would turn its gaze in their direction. But aboard the Nemesis, there was no celebration, only stillness. Admiral Varian stood at the viewport, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the empty stretch of space ahead. Commander Holt approached, datapad in hand. "We're receiving transmissions from multiple governments," she said quietly. "Some are congratulating us. Some are, less diplomatic." Varian didn't turn. "Let me guess, they're calling us monsters." Holt nodded. "The butchers of Corron, the black sun of Earth. A few are demanding we stand down or answer for what we've done." He exhaled slowly. "They fear us." "They should," Holt whispered. "But what happens now?" Before Varian could answer, Lieutenant Morrow's voice cracked through the silence. "Sir, we've detected a large-scale energy surge, deep space, unknown origin." That got his attention. Varian turned. "Is it a fleet?" Morrow's fingers flew over her console. Negative. "No identifiable ships. It's different gravitational anomaly forming just past the edge of mapped territory. Far beyond the galactic rim." A pause. Varian's brow furrowed. "Put it on screen." The display flickered, then stabilized, revealing a swirling distortion in the black space. Itself seemed to bend, ripple, twist unnaturally. It pulsed not like a storm, but like something breathing. "What the hell is that?" Holt murmured. "A rift," Morrow said. "Tearing through space-time. Growing, and sir, something's moving inside it." Silence gripped the bridge. Varian stepped forward, studying the massive darkness. It wasn't just a crack in space. It was a wound, and something was coming through. "Open comms, standard hail," he ordered. Morrow nodded, transmitting now. The speakers hissed, then vibrated with something unlike any signal they had ever heard. Not words, not even noise. A deep harmonic resonance. Like a chorus of voices layered on top of each other, speaking in a language that bypassed the ears and clawed directly into the mind. Crew members winced. Morrow clutched her head. "Cut transmission," Varian barked. The sound vanished, but a lingering weight remained in the air, like the echo of something watching. Sir Holt said softly, eyes wide, "That wasn't communication, that was presence." Before anyone could respond, Morrow looked up sharply. "They're moving ships, massive ones exiting the rift now." On screen, Varian said. The display shifted again, and the bridge fell silent. What emerged was impossible. Vessels larger than cities, shaped like nothing the galaxy had ever known. Not machines, not truly, more like constructs of darkness and matter twisted into shape by something ancient. Their forms flickered unstable, shifting between solid and shadow, as if the laws of physics refused to define them. "This is Captain Darnell of the Vanguard," came a voice over comms. "What the hell are we looking at?" Varian didn't answer. He couldn't, because he didn't know. "Attempt comms again," he ordered. Morrow hesitated. "Sir, if we..." "Now," she transmitted. This time there was no reply, only movement. The shadow ships surged forward, and the rift behind them pulsed again. "They're charging." "Weapons," Morrow shouted. "Massive energy spikes. All hands to battle stations." Varian roared, "Engage." The Nemesis launched everything it had. Railguns fired. Plasma cannons flared. Drones swarmed toward the anomaly like a storm of steel. And for a moment it worked. One of the shadow ships buckled under the barrage, twisting violently before fading into nothing. Then the retaliation came. Black lances of energy lashed out, not light, not heat, not radiation, but absence. They consumed everything in their path. One Terran ship disintegrated mid-transmission. Another tore apart from the inside, its crew gone before they could scream. Shields dropping, adaptive systems failing. They're eating our energy fields. Varian's mind raced. This wasn't like the Dominion. This wasn't war. This was annihilation made manifest. He watched as more ships poured from the rift, dozens, then hundreds. Holt's voice cracked. There's no end to them. Varian's hands clenched. He had raised planets, crushed empires. But this was something else. And for the first time in years, he wasn't sure if humanity could win. We finished them. The rift roared. More of them came, shadows shaped like warships, titanic and unrelenting, spilling into known space like a cosmic infection. They moved without inertia, without mass phasing between existence and absence. Dark voids wrapped in pulses of ancient energy. The Terran fleet reeled. Drones disintegrated before impact. Railgun slugs passed through some of the shadow vessels, vanishing into the abyss. Energy weapons overloaded, scattering off unnatural hulls. And when the shadow struck back, the results were catastrophic. Entire ships vanished, no explosion, no wreckage, just gone. On the Nemesis bridge, alarms screamed, screens flickered, and the air trembled with power. The ship wasn't designed to endure. We're losing formation, Holt shouted. 2 destroyers down. The Vanguard is crippled. Redirect all shielding. Varian barked. Form a perimeter around the fleet core. Buy time. The crew obeyed, but their eyes were wide with something Varian hadn't seen since Earth's darkest days down. They're not just fighting us, Holt whispered. They're breaking reality. Varian gritted his teeth. Then we break them first. But deep down, he knew this wasn't like the Dominion. This wasn't even war. It was something older, colder. A force that didn't conquer, didn't enslave. It simply erased. And it was endless. Sir Morrow cried from the console. We've found something. A pattern in their emergence. Varian turned, explained. She pulled up a hologram readings from the rift's gravitational waves. It's unstable, she said. The rift. It's not just a portal, it's an anchor. They're using it as a doorway, but it's also keeping them tethered here. Holt's eyes widened. So if we collapse the rift, we trap them or tear them apart? Trying to follow. Morrow finished. Varian looked at the Nemesis core status. The ship was failing shields at 30% primary weapons, overheating hull, stress redlining. But the core, the heart of the ship, still burned strong. We can overload the core, he said slowly. Detonate it from within the rift. Silence. Everyone knew what that meant. Commander Holt stepped forward. Eyes fierce. That's a one-way trip. Varian nodded. Sir, let me go, she said. No, he said simply, you're the fleet's mine. They need you. They don't need a mine, Varian said. They need a symbol. Something that says, we don't run from nightmares, we end them. Holt clenched her jaw, but said nothing. Across the comms, the human fleet was screaming for answers. Varian tapped the broadcast control. This is Admiral Varian, he said, voice like steel. We are not facing an enemy. We can outfight, but we can outthink them. The rift is the key, we sever it. We end this. He turned toward his crew. Prepare for final approach. As the Nemesis surged forward, the Shadow Fleet converged. They sensed the threat. They came in waves, twisting through space, hurling impossible energies, desperate to stop the lone Terran vessel diving into their heart. But the Nemesis didn't slow. It fought with everything it had left. Drones burst through the black, sacrificing themselves to make a path. Point defense guns spat death in every direction. Railguns thundered until their barrels cracked. Inside sparks rained from the ceiling. Fires erupted in corridor junctions. Crew braced for death, but no one turned back. This was what the ship had been built for. And then they reached the rift. It loomed before them, pulsing like the heart of a dying god. Within its swirling chaos, the full scale of the Shadow Fleet writhed, hundreds more, maybe thousands, waiting for the rift to grow wider. Varian stood at the command console, watching the numbers on the core count climb. Detonation in 30 seconds, Morrow said quietly. Holt turned to him, voice shaking. You don't have to do this. I do, he said. Because if we don't finish them now, no one ever will. She saluted. He nodded once, then turned to the rift and smiled. We were never meant to survive forever, he whispered. But we were meant to fight. He hit the final trigger. In the last second before light consumed the Nemesis, the crew looked to him and saw peace. Then, white, Everything. The core ruptured, reality cracked. The rift imploded. Across the galaxy, ships turned their sensors to the stars and saw only silence. The Shadow Fleet was gone. So was the Nemesis. But humanity was not. Holed aboard a retreating vessel stood, silently watching the empty void where the flagship had vanished. Her fists trembled. Her voice didn't. "Transmit to all known channels," she said. "This is the United Terran Navy. We do not start wars, but if you raise a hand against us..." She looked to the stars where Admiral Varian's legacy burned. "We finished them.